Hello, everybody, and welcome to TableTakes, presented by Gen Con. I am the Mike Robles, joined this week, of course, by Christian, Emma, and Fake Tifa. Once again, Fake Tifa, welcome back.
Hi.
Looking good, Fake Tifa.
Looking good, Fake Tifa. Real Tifa, unfortunately, down with a migraine today, so we hope she feels better. Also, you guys clearly did not get the memo. It's Cool Jacket Day.
Yeah, cool jacket day.
It's
Cool
too hot.
jackets.
It is like record-breaking heat in Seattle.
It's like
I'm sweating through my shirt.
You know,
It was 80 the other day, like 79, close enough, round up to 80.
just get a
Too hot.
macrame jacket that has the vents so that the heat transfer can happen. It's probably a thing.
I would like it just not to be hot.
What is a macrame jacket?
I just told you it has vents.
It's a jacket made out of little macaronis.
But no, it's not. Macrame is a craft. You might recognize it from 70s era plant hangers that kind
So you
of
really
like
think I'm that old,
woven.
I see what you're. That's fine.
It's come back. No, it's back in.
It's back in. Speaking of back in.
Again, we're going to jump right into headlines. Speaking of back in, last night on a Twitch stream,
announced, and I know this is something that Chris and I are both excited about, and Derek is kind of excited about, Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2 just got announced. An RPG, very successful. A sequel we thought we'd never see. For those of you that may not know, the original Vampire the Masquerade was out for PC a very long time ago, and probably one of the greatest vampire stories done on PC. It's awesome. It was just announced last night.
It's set in Seattle?
It's set in Seattle, and the gameplay looks crazy from what they showed in the trailer.
You get to go to old underground Seattle.
They had the Ferris wheel in there too.
Yeah,
Nice.
it's awesome. Hardsuit Labs is developing it. They're actually based in West Seattle, published by Paradox Interactive out of Stockholm and San Francisco. And if you're like, man, I never played the original Vampire the Masquerade, in odd timing, and my friend that works there had no idea this was happening, the original Vampire Bloodlines is on sale for $5 on Humble right now.
Man, it's kind of hard not to go for that.
I'm going to go buy it like when we leave the thing. I was like, what?
Nice.
I'm going to go buy
Yeah.
it again.
Just like if you are going to get the original Vampire Bloodlines, keep in mind that it's got a very 90s take on things
Yes.
like mental illness
Yes.
and sex work. So it is a product of its time. Just
Hopefully
know
they can fix those things. But
Also, the
even with
gameplay
that,
is very 90s.
even with that, the thing that I'm excited about, because I never had a chance to play the old game, because my
so
computers are always the worst. So I have it, I just haven't played it because it's an old game.
Yeah.
But having the new edition kind of revitalizing the tabletop game, and me spending more time in the online community for that, like on Reddit and stuff.
Nice.
It's crazy to me to see how many people came into the hobby through Bloodlines.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I'm very excited to see what'll happen once this comes out and people want to jump into the tabletop game and get fully immersed in it.
And the story synopsis for it seems pretty epic, actually. Like
Yeah.
you get to start off as like in a mass embrace where you all become vampires at the same time with a bunch of like really, really what we would call low level
thin-blooded
thin blood.
vampires,
You're like a
even.
14th gen thin blooded vampire.
Thin-blooded vampires are a big thing in the new edition.
Yeah, very much so.
Like some very interesting stuff going on. Maybe that's how they'll rationalize my nerd tweaking at the not proper discipline use names. So whatever, Thin Blood Alchemy, it's fine.
Yeah. I like that they're kind of redoing the disciplines based on your thin-blooded nature. I think that's a fun way to go, and it still makes it that you're not looking at the game from the point of view of like a regular guy. Like, hey, I'm a monster now. Let's play with this.
Yeah, no, the game starts out the mass, but you're basically on trial for getting turned, and then they decide that you're not worth it and toss you out. So it's like, all right, good luck, Thin Blood. You're on your own, which is going to be awesome. Out in, I think it's 2020. So
That can't come soon enough for me.
and it's going to be on PC, PS4, and Xbox One. I'm really excited.
But you can put your PC or your laptop on your tabletop, which makes this news count.
It's RPG, it's Vampire. We've talked about Vampire before. I still think this is relevant.
Digital,
I agree.
physical
Yep.
crossovers,
Yep.
relevant.
Yep.
Considering how important of a gateway this is going to be, I think it's relevant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty soon we'll get everyone hooked.
Yeah, speaking of getting everybody hooked, Mondo Tees, who put out, they put out enamel pins, movie posters, which I have tried desperately to hit refresh to purchase. They put out vinyl albums they have on sale right now. Once More with Feeling, the original soundtrack to Buffy the Vampire Slayer, a vinyl of that out now.
Oh man, what's it go for? Probably about the same as the record player you would buy to play it on.
It's $25.
Yeah, there you go.
That's it. $25 for the vinyl. They are partnering with Restoration Games.
And The Thing, importantly, their first entree
true, yeah.
into board games. So this will be their second game that they're producing.
Yeah, and they're making a game called Unmatched.
Unmatched.
Unmatched. Unmatched. Unmatched. You said the Murph brothers had got to play it, right?
Yeah, so we actually had some gameplay on stream on Monday because the Brothers Murph play games Monday night. So if folks want to see this game in action, if you go to our Twitch video on demand for Monday, you should be able to pull it up. I think he started about halfway through, I'm not sure.
All right.
I think he was playing a solo game of Orleans, and was getting brutally squashed by the game. And then I think the other guy came in and they busted it out. So it looks really good.
Sweet, yeah. It's a tactical combat game based on Star Wars Epic Duels, which we learned was the predecessor to HeroScape, which HeroScape was really awesome. That amazing terrain.
Yeah.
Cool
Oh my
painted
gosh,
minis.
yeah.
One of the things I love about doing this show is I get to learn stuff exactly like that. Oh, this is the predecessor to something.
Right?
And then you
Makes me
sound
sa-
really
It
smart.
makes me sound really smart when
Right?
I'm not in a room with you guys who are much smarter than me about games.
So the first 2 sets can be released at Gen Con, and there's so much to talk about. The Battle Legends, which include King Arthur, Alice, Medusa, and Sinbad.
Bizarre.
Yeah, that's
Well, so
Oh, and what do all these things have in common?
public domain characters.
Nailed it.
Public domain characters.
Nailed it in
King
one.
Arthur, Alice from Alice in Wonderland, Medusa from wasn't she a Power Ranger or something?
that's
Yeah.
exactly what she was.
But the interesting thing that occurs to me in that, not only is that makes business sense in a lot of ways, but I think maybe the reason that they did that is because Mondo has such an amazing visual design.
Oh, yeah, they do.
I wouldn't be surprised if they selected some of those characters to allow Mondo the freedom to do whatever they wanted without
Yeah.
having like brand management, wanting to keep a character looking the way the character is. Because like Mondo has done, those movie posters are incredible.
I have an Adventure Time one that is
Yeah,
just
yeah.
gorgeous.
Like their layout, graphic design, art is just nuts.
So they
this
don't
game
normally
already
do
looks
games. They do
amazing.
just art stuff generally.
They do. I mean, they're sort of branching out because they started originally doing some T-shirts, and now they're doing.
They do those big movie posters.
Now they're doing for the movie posters. They've been doing a ton of enamel pins, and then now they have Mondo Music when they're putting out. I mean, they've done. I got the soundtrack to Clue from them, and then when they did that, they actually put out.
Oh.
They actually put out one in every color. So I scored
I
Miss
love
White,
that.
so it's a nice, beautiful white vinyl. I actually have the Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 soundtrack.
Nice.
That's really well done. And again, amazing artwork on the cover. With the vinyl's treated. They treat everything with such respect and care that it makes sense. Like Derek says, it makes sense for them to do something like this and have this artistic freedom.
If even half of that quality transfers over to a tabletop game, it's worth buying.
Yeah. And I mean, with Restoration Games,
Yes,
too.
that's what I was gonna say.
Restoration Games, just
Yeah.
known also for quality of the mechanics. They did Fireball Island recently, as well as a lot of other things.
So both companies giving it their all, we have an amazing product. coming
Yeah,
out.
agreed.
That's what it looks like.
I can.
Even with both companies phoning it in, it's probably going to be a pretty good game.
Not that they are. They're not phoning it in. It's just
No, I'm not
if
saying that they
chose
are.
to.
Safe bet.
I was
believe-
not accusing you of anything.
In addition to what we've already talked about, there's a Robin Hood versus Bigfoot, which I find.
That's
I
the
would
matchup
watch
I
that
think is
movie.
even
I would
weirder.
100% watch that movie.
It probably is a movie, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's on
there's,
Netflix.
So is
there's the
Bigfoot-
Sam Elliott movie, The Man Who Killed Bigfoot.
Who killed Hitler and then the
There-
Bigfoot?
There you go.
Yeah, I'm gonna.
Is Bigfoot the Prince
It's on my
John
queue.
in this scenario? There's a realm of Bigfoots who are greedy
We don't
and
even know.
Who
stealing from
knows?
the poor.
But not in public domain. They are going to release 2 other sets in 2019: Bruce Lee and Buffy the Vampire Slayer, which I really hope is a
Versus, yeah, I was gonna say.
That would-
Who would win that fight?
right?
Bruce Lee.
I suppose that's possible.
And then the one I'm interested in coming in 2020, Cobble and Fog, which is Sherlock Holmes, the Invisible Man, Dracula, and Jekyll and Hyde.
Also all public domain.
Also all public domain.
But you can make them look good. If they put Holmes in a deer stalker, I'm going to be mad. I'm not even going to lie.
But so the gameplay is you have a hero, they've got a couple sidekicks, you've got a deck of cards to kind of play from. So it should be really interesting to see, because I think this is the first time that Restoration has taken a miniatures game and given this kind of gravitas to.
Yeah.
I don't think Mondo has dealt with anything like this previously. So
Yeah.
I'm really curious how this is going to resonate with people, because the visuals might pull folks in who otherwise would have dismissed a dueling game, basically a tactical duel.
Right.
Yeah. It's gonna have to be pretty simple, I think, and not in a bad way. It's gonna need to be accessible. Like if you're pulling people in with this awesome art and these awesome characters, and I think that's something that the industry needs more of is more tactical stuff where you can just kind of jump into it.
Well, if you think about it, its legacy of coming from Star Wars. and HeroScape itself. You know, those were both very accessible games. You know, HeroScapers had a lot of young kids who came in just because of the variety of weird units you could field.
Yeah, I'm particularly looking forward to Sherlock Holmes versus Medusa. I feel that the battle will be one-sided simply because of the magnifying glass.
Because you can look through that, right?
Yeah.
Speaking of one-sided battles, Game of Thrones, the social deduction game coming. I'm gonna let you take this one.
Game of Thrones is a show and a book. I've seen the Red Wedding episode, and another episode where a lot of people died.
You know what? I have also not read or watched any Game of Thrones, but you two have.
Okay, I've read all of the books. I've watched the series. If it's a social deduction game, Game of Thrones, just assume you're playing the Game of Thrones.
Yes.
All right?
Yeah.
The idea is one side is the guy on the Iron Throne, the other side are the people trying to overthrow that person.
Yeah.
And you have to figure things out socially. It's a social deduction.
Shockingly, in Game of Thrones, you don't know who to trust. You don't know who to get married to.
Yeah.
You have to pay attention to what music is playing when you start eating.
Yeah,
that
is so true. Gosh.
Wasn't that also in Battlestar Galactica? You pay attention to the music?
Yeah.
Yep.
It's fine.
So
Also, if you have if you're a decent human, you're probably going to die.
off screen.
Or on. Either way.
Relatively, right? I mean, the bar is set pretty low for decency, I think, in this
Well,
universe.
you know, I mean, they're all still humans, if that's what you mean.
Yeah.
They do good things and bad things,
Yeah.
but the people who do good things die first.
So there's a lot to break down in this, especially because, like we talked about, in this game, in this social deduction game, which is normally, you know, a bunch of people sitting around a table, all shouting at one another, accusing one another. There's a ton of components to this.
Yeah.
All right, so there's trackers, there's cubes, there's rolls, there's bits. That's a lot.
I was expecting a stack of cards, I'm not going to lie,
Yeah.
or, you know,
Yeah.
maybe a couple of little tokens, but other than that, you know, just yelling at each other.
Yeah.
That's what a lot of social deduction games are. That very accessible. You don't have to learn a lot of rules. You don't have a lot of components. It's really just the social interaction, and you got to read people.
But
Yeah.
Game of Thrones games don't do anything small, as we have learned from any of the other Game of Thrones games that have come out.
Board game,
the board game
living
is
card
amazing.
Game, like they tend to pack a lot of game into the things that.
So we don't know how this is working, but that list of components suggests that there's going to be more complicated rules or more like a more rich rule set than a lot of social deduction games might have, which might help some folks who aren't as comfortable kind of in that free-form environment. There's definitely some people who don't
definitely
find that
comfortable
engaging.
with I have more tokens than you, so
Yes.
I win.
Yes.
It's being produced by Direwolf Digital, working with Renegade Games. So that's another. I mean, we're just seeing over and over again these IPs working with these incredible established game companies. So seeing a name like that on a game, like you know that this is going to be a game.
We're seeing them with established game companies that aren't Parker Brothers or Milton Bradley.
Yeah,
Right.
They're-
And
Established within the
I guess
industry
hobby
with some
games,
cred.
I would
Yep.
say,
Yeah.
like hobby publishers.
Which, Emma, you bring up a good point, and you talked about this before the show started, was that now you're seeing these IPs get treated well and seeing better games that, again, are not, you know, Game of Thrones Monopoly.
Yeah. And I mean, we say better games, you know, this kind of a value judgment on
Right.
us as more industry people. Like, we're looking for something a little more crunchy, a little more
A little
experiential.
more hobby-focused, yeah.
But it's good to see the variety, right? Like, on the one hand, you have your light stuff. On the other hand, you
seeing
have...
a little picture of Mr. Moneybags on that Iron Throne would be cute. It'd be really, really cute.
We're not seeing, you know, Mario Brothers Uno, right?
Yeah.
We're seeing, you know, the really well thought out game, and I think that's what's important. It's a good takeaway here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think now that games are ubiquitous, licensed games are getting the respect that they deserve.
Because they're attaching them to legit games.
Yeah.
Not that Parker Brothers doesn't put out legitimate games.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
But and making those mechanics more accessible, like we had mentioned with the Unmatched, you know, pulling more people into this, and they're willing to give things with an IP they know and trust a chance more so than generic non-IP heavy deduction bits game.
Generic non-IP, I feel, is kind of a rude term, just because like
They're-
these are people who've created their own worlds that we don't know from the movies.
Yeah.
Like a non-licensed game.
There we go.
Non-licensed game. Well, when we might get into this later on, if there is a segue into this eventually, but
Maybe.
more like generic, some are more generic fantasy worlds, versus some that absolutely do have, you're absolutely right, like a very rich world created by people that's just sadly underappreciated as some of these bigger IPs.
Yeah, I think a lot of us as gamers are kind of just done with the generic fantasy setting. We've seen it in so many ways. So you got to do something to make it interesting. If that means you're going to do a licensed IP, or if that means you're going to take the time to actually do some world building, I'm happy with either.
Absolutely. Oh yeah.
Speaking of world building, WizKids is going to unleash the OP Arena. It's going to have your dudes kill opponents' dudes. We're all dudes.
Why is it always dudes?
Because we're all dudes. I'm a dude, you're a dude, we're all
But some of the
dudes.
dudes are ladies, apparently.
Maybe they're all on like a ranch. Maybe it's a dude ranch.
It's Dude Ranch. There you go.
Maybe, probably not.
Maybe,
No,
maybe
almost certainly not.
Maybe this takes place, like we talked about in California, where everyone's a dude. So this is ridiculous, over-the-top comedy battles. Play with tarot-sized cards, dice, and tokens. Christian, you want to read off some of these names? I know you're excited
Okay,
about
no,
this.
I love. Okay,
This is definitely your...
the names of your dudes, and I'm just going to go ahead and use the term that they use. They have dudes with names like Karate Sausage and Lactose Intolerant Unicorn, not to mention Unhappy Cthulhu.
Like,
I think they missed an opportunity just to name him Grumpy Cthulhu.
Yeah, is Cthulhu ever happy?
That was my question.
Do we have the
You know,
psychographics?
maybe when
I think after
when
the
he's
fall
asleep.
and in the rise of all of our madness, sure, he'll probably be happy. I mean, something's got to satisfy him,
I think
right?
Cthulhu's emotions are beyond the ability of mortals to comprehend.
Yeah. Except in this game, where they're very much they have a Cthulhu's therapist.
So they're just like regular emotions.
Actually, Cthulhu's therapist would make
That
for
would
an
be-
amazing character. Just a
Unhappy
completely
Cthulhu.
crazy person.
Yeah.
WizKids, if you're listening, that one's free.
Tell me about your mother.
But I think that sausage, karate sausage, lactose intolerant unicorn, and unhappy Cthulhu. If you laughed at that list of names, then this game may be for you.
This
Yeah.
might be for you.
If you did not, I do not think this game is going to be for you.
Yeah.
The entire concept of the game seems to be very, very tongue-in-cheek. It looks
Yeah.
like they're not
yeah.
trying to take themselves too seriously. Because of that, I'm not going to pick apart their language usage. If they want to call everybody dudes, I'm not going to tell them that's wrong. They have dictionaries. They should know.
Well, and this is another direction that we're seeing with a lot of games. Like there's the IP direction, but then there's the tongue-in-cheek, non-serious.
Yeah.
And I think that is also a departure from the historically very like serious, like mechanical nature of games. And I'm happy they're throwing some
We live in a
humor.
golden age of games where we can explore so many things.
Yeah.
Everything from, the World War II simulation to exploding kittens. I mean, we've got lots of options.
Derek, you mentioned exploring so many things. Speaking of exploring so many things, WizKids is also releasing Flotilla, which is Waterworld the game, basically. So what this is an alternate post-apocalyptic from history where nuclear testing in the 50s shattered the Earth's core and flooded everything. Polar ice caps melted, and it's, you gotta collect your resources and survive on your flotilla.
So this is alternate history,
Yeah.
not future history.
This is alternate history.
Okay.
Alternate history.
Alternate history
Right.
post-apocalypse.
Definitely
Post-apocalyptic.
not a very real possibility in the near future.
I'm pretty sure that if we were to ask any scientists whether the Earth's crust would crack, exposing the mantle to the ice caps, they
Yeah.
would just
Well, maybe not
be
that
like,
part, but the polar ice caps melting.
Look, all I care about is that this is clearly a Waterworld board game.
Okay, and we had a discussion before this. Okay, like there's feelings about Waterworld.
All those who love Waterworld say aye.
Yeah, we are obviously we have terrible taste in film,
Oh my
but
Great
I'm
taste
just a
in
sucker for post-apocalypse.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's just okay. The movie, whatever, the acting, like you can say whatever you want, but the world building.
Ashley Coates was like the scariest thing in that whole movie.
It's a good movie.
He's just like the creeper that comes on the boat, like, "Hey, let me buy your people." To this day, I have nightmares about that guy.
Yeah.
But that being said, still Flotilla sounds awesome. Like it sounds like a game that we're all going to be super interested in. It's going to be
Yeah.
curious to see how this works. Like is the water level going to continue to rise? You just not if you don't get your gasoline and your oil on your flotilla, can you not survive?
Then Dennis Hopper comes for you.
Right.
Yeah.
Is dirt going to be like the big resource, like the gold? Who
But
knows?
also, I just want to live in this world. Like I would probably hate it in reality. Like if I was actually building a flotilla in the water, like there would be salt. you would have a sunburn all the time.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have any aloe to rub on your sunburn because there's no plants.
But this is why we play a game instead of buying a houseboat.
Right. But in my mind, I just love the idea of like putting everything together. You're running your city, you know, you're gathering all the resources, making the best floating city. I'm really excited, mechanically and thematically, about this game.
Speaking of gathering resources, you know what happens if you gather too many resources? Eventually,
You end up with a surplus.
you end up with a surplus. Well, that's true. And then what happens is they all break out.
Yeah.
And IDW is putting out a Ghostbusters co-op game where essentially the containment unit has exploded. It's broken down. It's called Blackout, Ghostbusters Blackout, where it's going to be a co-op game, and you as Ghostbusters need to go through the city and trap ghosts and collect them and put them back in the containment
This
unit.
sounds like
Yeah.
it should have been the plot for Ghostbusters 2.
The containment unit was already shut down in Ghostbusters 1, though.
Yeah, this
Right,
is...
I mean, they put it back. They turned it back on.
But well, they did turn it back. Interestingly, though, this does not involve anyone shutting down the containment.
It's true,
So we
we
don't
don't.
get those snarky one-liner.
Oh, I know. I was just saying. We were joking about this earlier. I was really hoping that there's like a hidden role or somebody's from the EPA and they shut it down every once in a while. It's like, oh, the ghosts come back out.
You think they'd only make that mistake once?
Yeah, there's a bypass. With the
It's-
really easy
we
kill
know from
switch.
movie series that like making the same mistake over and over is very good for continuing.
It's
A
classic.
franchise.
Yeah,
It's
continuing
not a
a
story.
franchise,
It's not
yes.
good for continuing a story.
Sorry,
It's good for
a
continuing a
franchise,
franchise.
yeah.
It's a classic callback.
Right.
There you go.
Yeah.
What we did know about this game is the artwork doesn't seem to reference any particular film. It looks like the artwork's very cartoony.
Yeah.
It looks like it may take some of the monsters that we've seen in the real Ghostbusters and Extreme Ghostbusters and sort of mash those two up. They're not
So they're the real extreme Ghostbusters.
the real Extreme
Real.
Ghostbusters.
Is that what extreme just
Extremely
an
real.
act?
They're just very extreme.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it definitely looks like they're sort of taking on a new look, a new non-canonical story.
Yeah.
I haven't actually played the other IDW Ghostbusters board game, but it looked really cool, and I know the minis were in there. So I'm excited for this. I enjoy Ghostbusters. I think it's gonna be really neat.
Co-op is the key thing to me because my wife loves co-op games.
Yeah.
So maybe this will be another one that we can check out.
There you go. Oh, I'm off a page.
And
I
if you
didn't
can't
move
find
forward.
somebody to play with, though, I mean, who are you going to call?
Ghostbusters is what I hear.
Couldn't help it. I tried. I tried to hold it back, and I just
No,
couldn't.
I'm glad. I'm glad you went there.
We're not gonna sing a song. That's
We're
fine.
not,
Keep going.
we're not gonna sing this song. I got no segue for this. I'm just damn excited. The Op
Yes.
There.
The Op is releasing a Die Hard board game based on the Nakatomi Heist. So this is going to be awesome. I don't even know what the game is going to be.
No, I'm just hoping for like a little tower that you play, like a mock-up board that has the tower in
That
it
you
for the
set on
different
fire.
floors. Yeah.
Yeah, that
like
was
here's
remind me.
here's the floor where the hostages are.
It's a legacy game,
Yeah.
right?
Here's where they shoot the yuppie in the office. It's gonna be so good.
All right, so let's dive into this a little bit, and we'll let you guys have some more thoughts and opinions on some more hot table takes. Is the Die Hard, the Nakatomi Heist board game? It's coming out in the spring, and is a one versus many asymmetric game.
So the natural conclusion,
Is you get to be John McClane and everybody else gets to be terrorists.
Yeah.
instead of a group of heroes versus one villain, probably a bunch of villains versus one hero.
Or maybe the one is the building. And the everyone is the terrorists and John McClane and the fire.
Have you played Crystal Caverns in a mysterious manner?
I've not yet.
We should talk about that because that's literally that idea.
Yeah. Well, this is the first Die Hard game. Like a lot of these IPs, like Ghostbusters.
If they make a
and-
sequel to it, is it gonna be on a plane?
And then it's the play. A lot of these games have a lot of iterations, but I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure this is the first time the Die Hard IP is coming to any game. Are there video games?
Yeah, they're not great, but there
No,
are some
they're-
video games.
Okay.
They're bad.
I mean, just like Die Hard is everywhere now. They had a call out in the Lego Movie 2.
Oh, I haven't seen it
There's-
yet. I need to.
Well, it's become a Christmas classic for us.
Spoilers.
For us, yeah, for our generation.
Yeah.
Like we
Yeah.
all say it's a Christmas movie.
There's even like a little mini golden book, like a golden book art style. That's the Die Hard Christmas, like a Christmas story done. So it's
Speaking of Christmas, you said that what your friends are thinking of
so
starting
many
a tradition.
friends. Yeah, so many friends who already include Die Hard in their sort of Christmas traditions are now going to add the board game and watch the movie and then play the board game.
Yeah. I will say, so I looked at the Labyrinth board game when it came out. It's cooperative. Like if you're playing with they recommend 4 players, you're playing one of each of the characters. So it's not. It's the one is played by just like by the AI, by the game. What I liked about that one is it wasn't just like going through the series of events because of the dreamlike nature of the movie itself. You were kind of, it was okay for things to be out of sequence. The one thing I want to see about this game is, are people going to be very beholden? Like, are they going to be very serious about like, that's not the way that it worked in the movie? I don't know. Like,
I think with the board game, you kind of have to throw that out the window. Although in the Labyrinth game, did you get to like play the different characters?
Oh yeah.
Because I want to be the big hairy guy.
Not only, but to win the game, you have to be able to recite the poem.
Yes.
If you can't recite the poem, you lose the game.
Yep.
Oh.
I mean, is it really a poem? It seemed like a piece of prose to me.
Through hardships unknown and dangers untold.
Okay, here we go.
I fought my way here to the castle beyond the Goblin City to take back what you have stolen. Because my kingdom is as strong as you, and my will is as great. You have no power.
There it is.
I was like, there's one more line.
Ooh, do it live. Whew.
You even forgot the same one she did.
High five. We'll do it right this time.
All
All
right.
right, good high five.
There you go.
You two remind me of the babe.
Now we're gonna sing.
So-
I want to sing.
No, we probably want to say that the person who is going to be displeased that the board game does not unfold canonically to the movie
Yeah.
is probably not the person you want to invite to play the board game.
Yeah, I already don't invite that person.
They can be
any game.
They can be
That's your
invited to watch
questionnaire
the movie.
before someone's allowed to come to your board game events.
Speaking of more movie tie-ins, the Harry Potter and Batman. It's not a together. It's two separate games.
Would be awesome.
We must kill the Harry Potter.
So there's minis, and I had no idea that there was a Harry Potter minis game or a Batman minis game.
Yeah.
I can't get this Harry Potter and Batman board game out of my head now.
I mean, they're both made by Night Models, right?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
So,
Emma, who works in retail.
yeah. So there's like, I think these are both like interesting avenues to go down for minis games. At Mox Boarding House, like we have both the games. Batman game in particular, we've had like a very strong small community getting into this game. The minis are great. Like the squad base, it reminds me a lot of Malifaux. So if you like the idea of a Malifaux squad game with interesting characters but set in this really cool universe, Batman's definitely a cool avenue for you to go down. Harry Potter, this is an interesting game because it's kind of like, what is the target audience for this minis game? Because it's a fairly complex, like tactical minis game, but then with this, like, what is the crossover audience between people who love Harry Potter and people who like these tactical type of games? I'm not saying there isn't any, but if they had perhaps like done assembled, painted minis, I think.
Well, that's what I'm curious about. Is these are unpainted minis, which means they can be so much more detailed than pre-painted minis. They look great.
Yeah.
So and also as someone who has learned how to paint minis and kind of gotten into it relatively recently, it is a very rewarding hobby to get into.
Yeah.
So I'm very curious to see how well these IPs and these products might bring a couple people to take that step. But I wonder, if they need kind of another introductory product or something to kind of help people.
I guess
along
my
that.
question is, who's buying this game and why?
Yeah.
Interesting.
And having like a starter set, like a painted starter set. You don't have to paint all the minis, but painted, assembled. Even putting this into mass market stores, like as painted, or like just one thing. It's like, paint this thing, and it's like, people would buy that, like have a pack with the paints included and the brushes
That's
included.
what I was thinking.
And don't even say that it's part of a game, and put that just like on the back, or it's like, hey, did you know this is part of a game?
Yeah.
So you have your mini, and now you can play the game with it.
I mean,
as
they
well.
sell paints and like ceramic banks right at hobby stores
Right?
and kid stores.
Yeah.
So who knows? For Batman, there's gonna be a Batwoman mini, which looks
great.
amazing.
Oh my gosh,
Looks
yeah.
really, really cool. And then an Archie and Joker's Bikers. And I had to do some research because I'm consider myself a pretty decent Batman fan.
Me
I
too.
had no idea who Archie was. Archie is apparently Joker's immortal dwarf.
What?
Dwarf?
Yeah.
What?
Okay.
That's how he's.
Comics
that's how
are
he's listed.
weird.
Comics are incredibly weird.
What are you talking about? They're all based on real life.
Yeah.
There-
But a
and-
bunch of bikers in Joker makeup will sound amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
No, they're. It's
If I was going to start a motorcycle gang,
the artwork
That
for
would be
them-
terrifying, because
Wouldn't
you
it?
would terrify everybody, and they would just leave. You wouldn't even have to fight them.
I honestly have no other tools to intimidate people.
You just do all
My
black,
makeup skills,
Do all
that's it.
black light, like Batman and Robin biker gang. All the black light. No. Yes. All right. Harry Potter's going to include 3 new teachers. Horace Slughorn, Sybil Trelawney, and Pomona Sprout. All very good teachers.
And then some the bad teachers too.
Yeah.
For that brief window of.
Ooh, I don't know who these
two bad teachers are.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie.
So
I'm not gonna lie.
remember
books.
when
and I just watched all the movies.
I know, but like we just read the last book, so
Yeah.
it's at the end when spoilers. At this point,
Man, it's
Is
been
this
like
Battle-
10
is this
years.
the
I think
Battle
we're
of
allowed
Hogwarts?
to.
No, yeah. So just before the Battle of Hogwarts,
Okay.
when Snape is headmaster,
Yeah.
the Carrows are two of the teachers that are just terrorizing the kids.
Okay.
And remember,
okay.
like Alecto and Amicus. I think Alecto goes into the Ravenclaw Tower. She gets knocked out. Amicus is the one who's trying to break through the door when Harry's in there under the cloak. Like.
Okay.
They're there briefly, but technically, yes, they exist, and those can have minis.
It's like when you were buying Star Wars figures as a kid, and you got the Bounty Hunter pack, and you didn't know any of their names except that they were written right underneath, and you're like, oh yeah, I remember seeing those guys in the movie for 3 minutes.
Yeah, for the one scene.
There's all going to be two centaurs, Ferenzi and Megorian, and his two proud centaur warriors as two more separate releases. So if you're into these minis games, you want to check them out, by all means, there's more coming.
Yeah, I mean, again, the minis do look great. So if you are not into fantasy, if you're not into sci-fi, if Warhammer hasn't pulled you in, Infinity, Malifaux, but you kind of want to do something more than, say, painting minis for your D&D game or your RPG, this might be a way to try it out.
Coming up next, we got Stronghold, releasing 3 roll and write games.
Oh yeah. More roll and write games. Man, I can't say enough about these.
Look, we haven't mentioned Talisman in all this episode, so we've got to talk about roll and write
but you
games,
just
which
did.
need to be in there.
You worked
Oh,
it
I
in
broke
there.
the streak.
So you might not actually. So the name of the new game, one of them is Twice as Clever. You might not recognize this name because the game's the German name for the game is actually pretty even on the box in the retail physical copy is Ganz schon clever, and the new one is Doppelt so clever. So Twice as Clever. The first one is that's pretty clever, and the new English title is Twice as Clever.
I hope the next one is just that's dumb.
That's
Too clever.
too clever. We
From the
shot
hit
moon.
novel How to
We
React to
went-
Jokes in German.
So this one, what's really interesting about this is the Doppelt So Clever, the mobile game is actually out already. It's been out for a couple of months. I downloaded it last night and played it because the Ganz schon Clever digital mobile app was actually quite a hit amongst tabletop game designers and hobbyist enthusiasts. It was all the rage on Twitter. Everyone was addicted. They weren't designing any games because everyone was just playing this game obsessively. I held off as long as I could. Then my friend made me play the physical game, and then I got into it. It was a problem.
We haven't
Faded
seen
a
you
little
since.
bit. Yeah. But it's a
fake
very
Emma.
kind of puzzly, for the right type of audience, very satisfying. You roll the dice, you like cross off numbers, you get combos if you get them in certain columns. And now this Doppelt So Clever is like that, but harder and more of that.
So it's even more clever than the first game,
Yeah, I mean,
Cleverer.
critics
which was
might say-
notoriously clever.
Critics might say
twice.
exactly twice as clever. Yeah, mathematically.
There you go. So that's one that's coming out, followed by Bricks, which is Tetris-like.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, basically, it sounds like you're
So you get the bricks to fit together?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah,
You,
There we
you
go.
roll them
Yep.
and then...
So I think you're generating like Tetris-y shapes.
Yeah.
And then you have to puzzle how to figure to set them in a row so you can clear rows, and that's how you get points apparently.
There you go.
So
Very
it is
Tetris-like.
exactly like Tetris.
Yeah. And then last up is Dizzle. For shizzle my dizzles. And you're gonna make connections on a scoring sheet and avoiding bombs. So it's gonna.
So yeah, what's the dizzle with this game?
Yeah. We don't know.
That
Details to be revealed later.
Yeah.
Spin Masters bringing out Bakugan. So I know a bunch of you just went, wait a minute, I know that name.
Bakugan is back.
And the other bunch of
It's
you are like,
Bakugan.
I've never heard of that before. Bakugan
Damn
is
it,
back
that was
again.
Sorry, it just.
No, that was good. That was good.
I thought you didn't like puns. It was very punny.
Yeah, it was. It was.
So there's
I'm a hypocrite.
there's a bunch of new craziness for this. So there's a brand new anime that released in December. The game's coming back. The game's has Justin Gary of Ascension as the lead designer for this game.
Who also recently released a book, Think Like a Game Designer.
It's
there you go, Justin.
Yeah, a legit designer.
Yeah. So serious business.
Well, it sounds like this is kind of paralleling what we just discussed with licensed properties. Getting the respect to release a good game. If they're bringing Justin Gary to work on this, who has a long litany of working on Ascension and other great games, to work on Bakugan to make it a fantastic game, in addition to being an anime tie-in, sounds great.
Yeah, what that tells me, putting a game designer like that on a game like this, tells me that they have a lot of high hopes for the game and bringing in people other than 8-year-olds into it.
And also for TCG, I mean, a TCG is such a risky proposition.
But it's a TCG that also includes these little toys, the Bakugans, and you
Yeah.
roll them, they'll roll and they'll hit a certain thing and they'll pop out and there'll be a little monster, and it's really neat. So Emerald City Comic Con was this past weekend here in Seattle, and not in the gaming area where they showed a lot of games. Versus System was down there, Magic the Gathering was down there. Bakugan was over on the 4th floor in the vendor hall and had
Opposite side of us, right?
And it had a massive presence there. They had
truss over everything, lighting.
They had lighting. They had a TV playing the anime. They actually had cages for like battle death cages, essentially, where kids would come in and play. And that's how you learn to play.
I love the idea that they had the cage to protect the audience in case one of the spinges goes off into a crowd.
Spinges, is that the technical term for that?
No.
Spinges.
I called them that because there was a toy when I was a kid.
Oh yeah, Spinges.
Called Spinges, and they were like they worked very, very similarly. There was like a little arena, and they were basically tops that you would wind into this little gun, and you would shoot them down, and the two Spinges would fight each other, and whoever got knocked out first was. It was like Rock'em Sock'em Robots, but much, much smaller.
Yeah.
And when Bakugan came out, I was like, oh, it's like Spinges with cards.
Yeah.
Except and transforming, creatures.
My 2-year-old super into it. He saw it, loved it, and one of the
The parts are technically too small for him.
Yeah. It's hidden right now from him. But he saw. What's funny is one of the people working the booth showed him. Was like, oh look, and like smacked it to like make it like pop open, and then threw it on the ground to make it pop open. So now that's how my kid thinks they pop open. He takes it and throws it on the ground as hard as possible. We're like, no! You have to roll it.
Yeah.
It must be rolled. And
Yeah, no, not really, Dad. Boom.
Yeah. Right, thanks.
Quick
Thanks,
activation.
Event, dude.
Very,
I learned from a pro. Thanks.
Yeah, exactly.
very short life cycle for those pieces, right?
Are you the Bakugan guy? Because the Bakugan guy threw it on the ground.
Yeah.
That's the fun part. That's the exciting part. Rolling.
Yeah, no.
But it does seem really interesting that so the game just relaunched just last year, and it seems like now that it's established kind of in mass market, they're looking to hobby to bring it there. So it'll be very interesting to see how that kind of percolates through hardcore gamers of all ages.
So this is going to be for like the hardest of hardcore fans right now, because I'm going to throw out some names that some of you may know, some of you may not. Here's the thing: is the booth was run by Cascade Games and Tim Shields, who hired Adam Staborski, who was known as a huge contributor to the Magic the Gathering world, and Tony Riviera, who was also known for doing massive events and helping out at Wizards events and stuff like that. So they hired some. Oh, and then this other guy, Xander Forel, who has done stuff at Mox Boarding House. Like they hired like top of the line people whose names I all recognize, and everyone. I walked in the booth and was like, all of you guys I know have done things and have worked for Wizards of the Coast and are used there for demos and sort of bring people in that are big names on the internet for in their specific genre. But like Tim Shields brought them into demo Bakugan, which shows you that not only does the game itself is trying to throw big names behind it, but the hobbyists and the folks that are running these games are also throwing.
Well, I think that the most important thing there is it demonstrates that when they as a company say we're going into hobby, it's not just like somebody in a suit being like, go do the hobby thing. It's they know who to work with to do that and who's had a history of doing it. So it demonstrates that they're taking it seriously and they're doing it right, which is interesting.
And because she was press and had other appointments, she couldn't do it. They actually were going to hire Tifa too to also be in that booth.
Wow.
So it's like they reached out to like some pretty impressive folks, and I was like, clearly Bakugan, you were here to make a statement, and they did.
Bakugan is here in a big way.
Yeah. Speaking of big ways, it's time for bundles.
Oh, gosh. It's like big ways. All right, I'll take that. So, bundles this week.
Bundle us up.
Yes. The bundle of holding this week has a couple of nice things. Stars Without Numbers, the classic edition of that, is available with a couple of its key supplements. For those of you unfamiliar with Stars Without Number, it is a very, very old school style sci-fi RPG in the spirit of Traveler meets first edition D&D. There are exactly 3 classes that you can choose from. Your warrior type, your more roguey type, and then your psychic, which is going to be your wizard for all intents and purposes. What I like about this game is that it does the idea is that it does give you that very old school feel. You've got exactly 6 stats. You only have the 3 classes you can choose from. But then what they do to turn it on its ear for this is they make the entire game a sandbox. Instead of taking you through specific plots or the story to save the galaxy, they just put you in a situation and see what you do with it and where you go from there, and it's kind of up to you. It's not in any way GM hands-off like I might be making it sound right now, because there's literally hundreds of tables you can roll on.
Oh, wow.
To make the worlds happen, to make, is there a space storm today? Oh, yes, there is. There's a lot of dice rolling in this game for the GM, but none of that requires you to write a story ahead of time.
Yeah, it's very much that feeling of you want that kind of old school D&D. You're exploring the unknown. You're kind of a couple heroes, maybe up against greater odds or something like that. Very simple rules, but you want that in a sci-fi setting. Stars Without Number has by far been kind of the most prominent serving that niche.
It's No Man's Sky on paper, really.
Nice. That sounds awesome.
And so we're seeing a lot of those older school or like older RPGs coming back.
Well,
and
we've got
here.
so many new systems and new things coming out that a lot of gamers are really kind of digging into the old school, and they're doing it. I think at first it was like a sign of resistance, like you don't take falling damage in this game, so it's not good. And so they kind of leaned into the more old school stuff. But the fact is, those games were fun for a reason, and they still are.
Nice.
There's nothing wrong with liking the old school version of a game. I recommend it in a lot of cases.
Yeah.
Rift's not being one of them, but still.
So there's 2 bundles.
Yes, there are 2 bundles. The first one obviously has the core game with a couple of the smaller supplements. The second one has the deluxe fancy game,
like the revised version.
The revised version, right?
Okay.
And then like the guide that helps you build ships, one that talks about the different factions in space. So both bundles is actually a fantastic deal, and I'm gonna pick it up today because, well, I like role-playing games and I like sci-fi role-playing games, and this one looks interesting.
That's what I like to hear when I prepare the agenda. Is how many things can I get my host to go buy?
Yeah, I'll buy this one.
What are we gonna get from all of these
You
bundles?
can keep your spinges.
Speaking of things to purchase and buy,
Take my money.
let's hand it over to Kickstarters with Tifa. Tifa, we got Kickstarters this week that are ending.
I'll be
this week.
your Kickstarter queen.
I like
for
that you
this
make
week.
it sound like we're reading off a
Kickstarter
script or
queen.
something. It's just like, oh, Tifa.
Let's cut the Tifa.
Let's try to cut the Tifa. Well, our producer has asked us to make sure that we're very obvious with the transitions, because we've got some cool new graphics that you guys may be noticing that are showing up when we're talking about Whatnot.
Ooh, fancy.
Ooh, I love Whatnot.
Yeah.
And Whatnot and
Whatnot,
whatchamajiggers and
Thingamajigs.
hotness, stuff like that. So,
Tifa.
Tifa.
I like the deeper voice. That's your Tifa voice.
The first Kickstarter that I want to mention is Age of Steam, the Deluxe Edition, and there's only like 3 hours left probably at this point. But it's like a completely re-envisioned, artistically rejuvenated, super deluxe edition of a very classic train building route game, basically.
Trains.
Trains.
Yeah.
Toot toot.
I love trains.
Yep.
why are you hating on trains?
What? I'm not hating. I said I love trains.
You're like,
Trains
I think
are
she's
an
talking about-
important historical component in the expansion of civilization.
I think it's just that there's so many train games.
But I think this is one of the best. This is one of the most prominent ones.
This is one of the train games you can buy.
Well, that's part of the thing about there being so many train games, that it can be difficult to parse out like which ones, like this is a really good, satisfying train game, and this is like they just used trains like an IP, like the train IP, to hook people.
The train IP.
Man, whoever.
Well,
owns
the
that
thing
IP
is, the people who are into railroad stuff are super into
fan.
railroad stuff, and
Yeah.
they'll buy any game that has trains in it.
Yeah.
The brand manager for trains has the easiest job in the world, and is getting paid millions.
My grandfather worked on the railroad his whole life, and
Oh, wow.
yeah.
Yeah.
And he went to the theater like right before he died to see Throw Mama from the Train, just because it had trains in the. He doesn't even like comedies.
Yeah.
You might even say the brand manager for trains. There's just one track they need to follow.
Nice.
Anyway,
Come on, guys, let's switch it up.
yep. So
Let's get back on track.
it looks really, really great. So
going
if
off
you're
the
a fan
rails.
of train games, if you're a fan of Age of Steam, check this out.
So the original was out in 2002, so they're reimagining it in this new iteration.
It looks
With
much more
brand
modern.
new trains. Oh, wait, those aren't real. There's no
They're-
such thing as brand new trains.
Put a sparkly coat of paint on them.
There you go.
The next one is Planetoid, which seems to be kind of an interesting mix of like a memory game and a resource collection game. That only has 7 hours to go. But the really neat thing to my mind was the board.
You were talking about that. It's got some pop-up features and some and putting things in the
So
board.
you're basically like asteroid miners. So you're coming
Yeah.
to this asteroid and you're trying to mine more valuable resources than your opponents. But the trick is that if you just mine, then you claim one resource they're all hidden. You claim one hidden resource, but all nearby resources are exposed. So you might end up
Okay, that's what it
exposing
was.
something more valuable
So
than
it's
you
like
drilled.
a full game version of the most annoying mini game from Mass Effect 2.
Yes.
Okay, that's what I wanted to hear.
But so
Take my money.
But the other thing you can do is just peek to see which one you want to drill.
That's kind of cool.
And the cool thing is the board is not just like cardboard that's laid flat. It's not also just tokens you put and just mix on the table.
Right.
The board is kind of a planet with the specific spots you put the circular resources
So
into.
it's got slots or pockets in it.
And those are raised on little plastic runners. So you
Okay.
can just kind of tap it.
Oh, and it'll flip up.
It'll flip up
Yeah.
so you can see it and then let it back down.
I mean, this is like
Seems
a
really, really cute.
I like novelty board mechanics. I really do. I was a big fan of pop-up books growing up.
This is like a first world problems, like board gamer problems. It's like, oh, this great game, but I have to like get my finger under
Yep,
there,
yeah,
and then
yeah,
the whole thing moves around, and I have to
This is-
straighten
it's
everything.
too hard.
It's
too
just-
hard.
It's one more way to immerse yourself in the thing.
Yeah,
I
but-
thought it was just very cute.
Oh, but I feel this.
Yeah.
I feel the pain of this. Like
See,
every time everything like shifts, I'm the one there who's like putting everything.
All of these
back and
like
just,
neat mechanics and all these talk about Restoration Games.
It's like crying because you can't get wood.
All this makes me want is for Restoration Games to take on 13 Dead End Drive.
I don't think I've played
Tell us more,
Yeah.
Microbliss.
it. Maybe you need to tell Restoration Games too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, 13 Dead
They're-
End
they're watching
Drive.
right now.
13 Dead End Drive is a game where this old lady dies and it's like, hey, look, I've left all of my closest people. I'll invite you to dinner. Whoever is left alive at the end of the night gets all my money. And so you have to move. You can move whichever character you want. You're given cards to say who you are, and you have to put them throughout the mansion. And actually press the buttons to kill them. You can drop the chandelier, toss them into the fireplace, make them
sounds
fall
great.
off a bookcase, knock them down the stairs.
I love murder games.
It's basically instead of trying to figure out who did it in Clue, you're trying to kill
Just
everybody.
kill.
Sounds
Yeah.
kind of like Kill Dr. Lucky, but instead of killing one person, you're trying to
You're
just
trying to,
kill
you're
everybody.
trying to be the last
That
person
sounds great.
standing, and you can move any character you want.
Yeah.
And you're like who you are is hidden.
Sweet.
It's awesome.
So the next game is High Rise, and this is a relaunch of a project. It has 3 days left. This is from designer Gil Hova, and you're building the skyline of a city. You know, you're building high rises, you're building giant skyscrapers, renting them out, making money. But the kind of interesting mechanic is not just that it's like on a board and you're just kind of laying it flat. It's three-dimensional.
Yeah, yeah.
So you take these skyscrapers out of the box, put them in a standee,
Yep.
and you
That's
stand it
cool.
up. So you end up with your skyline, which seems really, really neat.
So who's Gil Hova?
Gil Hova is a fantastic human being. I was lucky enough to be able to test out the game at Gamma just last week. The game is like gorgeous table presence. And one of the things I really like about Gil Hova's games is just like he's been designing games for years. Like he had a great success with the networks. He also talks about games on the Ludology podcast. So just like brilliant within the space of game design. And all the games just have just really tight, solid mechanics. So this one, you're moving around the board. It's got a little bit of a Takedo element to it.
neat.
So you get to like move to the next space, but you might be sacrificing future actions. So if you really want something, you might have to skip over a lot of stuff. But you're gathering these really cool tiles that you put on your board, and then you trade in a stack of them. So it has that kind of stacking element to turn it in for one of these standees, and then you gather points over time.
Like building a hotel.
Yes. Oh yeah, yeah.
All right. What else we got?
So we also have Feudum, an expansion for that. It's got 3 days left. It's called Rudders and Ramparts. And this is going to be very cool because I haven't played Feudum yet. But this expansion looks super adorable. There's tiny little, almost like super deformed airships. You put dice in, little boats. So, some of the art has a really colorful board with a super cute little guy on it.
Yeah.
So is this a cute, simple, fun game?
So this game, and if you've seen
That sounded loaded.
if you've seen this in your friendly local game store, like you've seen the box, the art is gorgeous in a unique way. It's got this like unique cartoon style of these characters on it, and the landscape that they're in, just like bold. The box is like bright pink.
Yeah, very striking.
Yes, just like I want it so bad, but this overlays this incredible complexity to the point where I sat down to play this game. After about an hour of setup and explanation, everybody at the table was like, maybe next time. Maybe I'll come back to this game after watching several hours of videos, watching some playthroughs, like getting that preparation to come into it.
But the reason I loaded that question is because I wanted to let Emma talk about how it might look super cute.
Yeah.
But don't let that dissuade you if you're looking for a much more complex game, is the way that I would phrase it.
That is absolutely what this game is.
It's a much more complex game disguised in a cartoon.
Yes.
Speaking of cartoony-ish games, am I doing?
This is good.
Right.
There.
Segue.
Yeah.
Valaria Card Kingdoms has a new expansion called Crimson Seas. Apparently, this is the third expansion. I haven't played the expansions yet, but the base game is really very, very fun. It's very accessible. If anybody's played like Machikoro, it's kind of like Machikoro with a little bit of like a deck building feel to the gameplay or the game flow. With a fantasy theme. And this one adds like pirates and sailing to an island and trading on the island and stuff like that.
With a name like Crimson Seas, it better have some pirates.
Yep.
Yeah, right?
But it's just very neat. You basically kind of start building a tableau, and you roll the dice on your turn, and you trigger cards based on whether they match either or both of the dice added together.
Oh, neat.
There's also the element that every character you kind of recruit into your kingdom has an action that's triggered on your turn when you roll the number. It has a different action that's triggered on everybody else's turn if they roll that number. Oh. So you always kind of engage in other people's turns.
Nice.
And sometimes it's important to choose, do you want a character that's powerful in your turn? Or do you want a character that's powerful in every other turn?
Nice.
There's a very interesting kind of dynamic there. And it's also a very, very simple game.
It allows for some strategy, though, which is good.
Yep.
Yeah,
Nice.
yeah.
So if people kind of like that feel, if you like building out your empire like you would in a deck builder, or if you like the dice rolling of Machikoro, you should check out Card Kingdom or Valaria. And this is the expansion. I think you can get like all the other expansions in the base game and all that kind of bundled together as well.
Yeah, all right.
That's got 4 days left.
We only got a few minutes, and we also got a few minutes left. So let's get through the rest of these.
Time to read really, really fast.
All right. Another one with 4 days left is Fall of Magic: Songs from the Axe and Fiddle, which is an expansion, kind of like tweak to a really kind of amazing story role-playing game, where you actually have like a physical artifact that you're all kind of telling the story around, which is this cloth map that you unroll as you adventure through the terrain.
That's cool.
This one is very, I've seen it. I don't know what to make of it because it comes in like a long box. The art is very kind of subdued. It's like graphical, black and white with like some pops of red in there. It's kind of, you would look at it like, I don't, what
What it is
this?
you're imagine like an old school fantasy map.
Yeah.
You know, it's very sparse in illustration, but you're traveling on the actual map the characters might have in the world, moving like these metal tokens around, and then each location will give you some choices to make, some storytelling prompts, but it's a very much a story game with some prompt and suggestions. So if you
Now, this is an expansion of it, is that correct?
Yeah, like it's a minor expansion. I think it adds a new character, it adds some other kind of things.
Like Songs from the Axe and Fiddle makes it sound like there's probably an inn involved.
I'm not sure about that exactly, but it's definitely trying to add, I think, like some new direction to go in and some other ways to tell stories in that setting.
Nice.
I think it also had an expansion that allowed you to like sail off the map, which was kind of neat too. There's very, very cool stuff in that game. But if anybody likes storytelling games and role-playing games that have an artifact that's really tangible, highly recommended.
All right.
So another one has 6 days left is Absconding, an indie RPG. It was part of the Zine Quest thing. This is all 5th edition content, but the interesting shtick is that it's not only created by people who are not published in the industry. They're not usually into the industry. It's looking for very different perspectives. So it's looking outside the industry for something, but they're also approaching it from a very like highbrow art perspective, and that they want to present the zine as an ephemeral kind of product of art, which is a really interesting perspective to take 5th edition D&D content. So check that out, because it seems to be a really, really neat indie kind of approach.
Nice. So it's like a mix between like supplemental rules and actual art. So it's kind of like if you remember, like the Rifter used to be when it first started getting published. You probably don't because you don't play Rifts. But
I'm there with you. Yeah, bringing everything back to Rifts. I got you.
If I can, and I can.
So definitely check that out if you want something a little weirder and different and out of the normal. I think.
Yeah.
Speaking of weird and different.
Yep. Do you ever want to play like dodgeball at your game table? Apparently,
No.
Now you can.
Actually, Mike, you've got a 2-year-old. You've probably played this game before.
So this is from the folks who brought us
The oatmeal.
the people who brought us Exploding Kittens.
Yep.
Bears versus Babies. This is Throw Burrito. It's got 6 days left. Shockingly, it's wildly successful.
Yeah.
But basically, you have cards, you make sets, and then you throw a stuffed burrito at your friends.
Yeah. I mean, I think like we joke about, do we want to have the physical aspect to it? There's spaces that it doesn't work, but there's games that I wouldn't recommend this to someone coming to Mox and sitting in our cafe.
Also, not Feudum. You don't want to throw.
Right.
If you're playing at a dining room table next to Grandma's China Hutch, don't.
But I would say games like Happy Salmon, Space Team. I've had a lot of fun with these. Like as a gamer and like a little concerned about space and like the physical motion around my board game stuff. It can be intense.
It's crossing over into sport, and that seems to make you very nervous.
Yes. Well, for this, I mean, I play sports. I'm a sportist. I do some sports stuff.
Sporter.
She sports.
I'm a sport. I sport. But I think it's something that people can be a little bit uncomfortable about, but I've had fun with them. So
Don't play with strangers. Like if you don't want strangers throwing stuffed burritos at you, don't play this game with strangers.
Also, if you want like burrito plushies, I guess this is where you get them.
I mean,
There you go.
there's something to say.
So the final Kickstarter I wanted to cover has 7 days left, and I know Christian loves this.
Yeah.
We're gonna go through all the phases of Christian's reaction.
Yeah. Okay. Here we go.
It's called Roland Wright.
Say that again.
Roland Wright.
Roland.
As in
Roland Wright.
As in the name Roland.
It is a Roland Wright game. About making a Roland Wright game.
Oh, see, that doesn't bother me as much.
It's bringing it back around.
You see, with the pun name, I was a little upset.
Yeah.
But when you told me that the game is about making a Roland Wright game, it's meta, and now I love it.
Yeah.
Have I ever told you about deck building, the deck building game, or Trader Mechanic, the Trader Mechanic
Trader
game,
Mechanic is
or
Oh,
Time
like a trader
Management, the Time
mechanic. It's got
Management
the
game?
picture of the
I play
mechanic
time
on
management,
it.
the time management game every day of my life.
So, Roland Wright, the Roland Wright game about making Roland Wright games, describes itself as a deceptively complex card and dice game where you're trying to
Deceptively
take.
complex.
That means you play it wrong the first 2 times, and then somebody reads the rules.
You're trying to take like themes and what's popular currently and kind of build it together into this game. Plus, it was a pun on the title, so you have to love it.
So there you go.
The way that this is being marketed is really fascinating. They're doing a lot of stuff on Twitter, social media. Danny and Derek Do Board Games, who is an awesome Twitter account, have actually done a mini-series of the ABCs of the Roland Wright games. So you should definitely go and check that out.
The ABCs of Roland Wright games?
The ABCs of Roland Wright, the Roland Wright game.
Oh.
This is awful without text in front of you guys, so we're really sorry about that.
But it's like little 30-second, minute-long videos you can just watch on Twitter and like get some like nice bite-sized covering of game, which I really liked.
All right. The last Kickstarter that I want to talk about before the show ends is Tifa Robles. Her Kickstarter.
Back it!
Back it, Tifa. Ends next
Not this
Thursday.
Tifa,
Not
real
this Tifa.
Tifa.
Real Tifa. And it is a young adult fantasy novel featuring pirates, princesses, and outlanders, and what connects the three of them together in a war-torn world that she's created, based heavily off of RPG video games and old-school RPG adventures. If you back her right now, you can get Chapter 2 before anybody else can see it. Chapter 1's up on the website. You just go to tifarobles.com, and it'll link you straight to the Kickstarter, and that will end next week. She quit her job to make this book, so help make that dream come true.
Back it.
Do it.
Where can people find you on the internets?
I'm Frequent Beef, so you can find me pretty much everywhere at that. The other thing I want to mention is we just launched another Twitch show this past Wednesday.
Yeah.
So that's on video on demand. It will be on YouTube soon. That was Peter Atkinson talking about the history of games with the people who are involved in them. That's awesome. And the first season is just covering Magic. So we're pulling in different designers and artists and everybody to talk about the early days of Magic. And this past week we had Steve Connard in, and they had some pretty ridiculous stories about how Magic was developed or how it was originally. So if you love Magic, go check that out.
Yeah, or if you just love games in general, learning about where they came from the people who made them is actually a pretty great opportunity, I think.
So that's every Wednesday at noon Pacific.
Or if you like history.
There you go.
Yes.
I am Emma Larkins. You can find me at Emma Larkins on Twitch and on Twitter. I'm doing another show later today, just silly stuff in Magic. Ooh. Speaking of Magic, hop on Arena, do some drafts. We try to do well, but we try and make it as funny as possible.
Nice.
I won't be here next week, so I'm going to be at PAX East.
Whoa.
Reporting live from the show. I'll probably have some content going up about that, so stay tuned.
And I'm Christian Doyle at Crash Jackson on Twitter, or you can find me on the Facebooks as well. I make pretend things.
I love it.
And I am the Mike Robles. You just find me at tifarobles.com, back to Kickstarter. We'll see you guys next week. TableTakes, presented by Gen Con. We'll see you next week, everybody. Goodbye.
Bye, folks.